Hello there guys, it's Joey. Apologies for not having a video out last week and apologies for the lateness of this video. We're going to be talking about crow energy under the Morrigan, crow masks in particular. There is a requested video. There will be a showing of the requested products at the end. So if you couldn't already tell, last week I had a really bad migraine and I am still in post-drome. So I'm still wobbly. I'm still having trouble formulating my words and making sure they're coming out in the right way. It's possibly a side effect of overwork, and then my brain went afterwards. Very possibly. It's also a genetic condition and I do suffer from them once or twice a year. So stress makes it worse, but I feel like it was a genetic one this time around. That's how it goes. So apologies if you've been wondering where I've been. Apologies if I garble my words in this video. I'm going to try my very best to concentrate and not do that. That being said, let's jump into the topic of the video. So we're going to be talking about crow energy, crow masks under the Morrigan. What it means to really engage with crow energies, the lessons of crow that I have thus far found to be true within my personal gnosis. This is to say that these are my truths as I have discovered them, not that they are the truths, because I don't believe in that line of reasoning. And that kind of ties into the medicine that I have found within crow work. So when we talk about mask work, this is something that I really, truly, deeply believe in, and it's the shamanistic wearing of masks, whether it be literal or metaphysical, not quite so literal. All these alls, honestly, I'm not making my life easier. My brain, let's use big words. So a lot of people, when they talk about masks in terms of spirituality, talk about it as being a purely negative thing. People are lying, people are hiding who they truly are. And to be honest with you, I've always found this a little bit of an irritation because there is a huge spiritual well of information that can be accessed through the wearing of masks. And I have done many blog posts on it, including one about crow masks. So we're going to be going over some of the ideas that I used in my lessons under the Morrigan, the crow mask. And we're going to be talking about how crow energy has changed my perception, which is basically what crow medicine is all about. So we're going to start with a little bit of poetry, my poetry, from a Morriganic war cry. Again, you can find the full thing on the blog if you wish. There is blood beneath your fingertips, stained once more with dirt. The nectar that fills your vein reminds you what is worth. The howling tail upon the wind, the crow cries out from a war. Head on over to starryeyesupplies.blog if you're wanting more. It rhymed. I was so clever then for a second, not at all, but it rhymed, so it was funny. Anyway, this is just setting the tone, setting the mood for the idea of crow energy. So I'm going to read you the opening passage and then we're going to talk about some ideas because I really like the opening passage and I think it sums up how I feel, given that I wrote it, about the crow mask energy. Timeless, ageless, coring from the outer reaches of the spiritual ecosystem, the prophetess, the magician, the omen bearer of all that could ever come to pass, the crow. Placing the black charred feathers across the brow, the eyes meet the eternal mysteries, reflected back in crow eyes. To wear them as your own is to stare into the abyss, to break the chains of limited thinking, to sink beyond human perception and acknowledge the eternal and arise humbled that all at once we are but a speck of light in the expanse and yet unique within our viewing. Crow energy lends itself to something beautiful and humbling and empowering all at the same time. Now, I'm going to say a few things to clarify within the beginning of this because ultimately I sadly feel that I have to. When I'm talking about how I work with crow medicine, in particular with regards to the Goddess Morrigan, it is most frequent that I work with her in her aspect of Bave, the translation of which from various historical sources is said to be Scald Crow or simply Crow, and one of the earliest mentions of her is the Bob Carther, the Battle Crow from the Wooing of Emer. So I work with Bave energies, not exclusively, but almost exclusively. I tend to work with the Morrigan in her whole aspect, as simplicity dictates to be calling it. It's not a simple experience whatsoever, but it's a whole archetype, if you like. Kind of, she's a shape-shifting goddess. It's a very difficult thing to say this is the entirety of a goddess, because it's not really an accurate way of perceiving deity. We only perceive deity through our own lens. We only perceive deity as we are able to, and the human senses are limited. So, I mean, you know, dogs have better hearing than us. Lots of creatures in the animal kingdom see better than we do, and it puts it in perspective that maybe our perception is not be all and end all. But regardless, I work with the Bave aspect. This is her quote-unquote crone aspect, although she's a shapeshifter and will shift between all elements as Bave. She shows up young and youthful sometimes, and sometimes more elderly, and sometimes somewhere in between, sometimes skeletal, sometimes as a crow. And shape-shifting, particularly with regards to the crow and indeed the raven, is elements of which she is seen in the mythology as doing. Like a raven shows up at the death of Cuchulainn, and that's signifying that, and he realizes that the Morrigan was indeed guarding his death. When it comes to crow medicine, I feel that this epitomizes the energy of which we are talking. Nothing is as it first appears for one glance is by no means a measure of anything. And I honestly feel that that kind of applies to lifetimes. I feel that one lifetime is not enough to glimpse even a measure of our soul. I saw it stated recently that reincarnation is a cop-out, a reason not to live fully in this incarnation. And I, through my lessons of Crow, have come to feel that that doesn't sit with where I feel at all. It's a choice to live a life a certain way, and what constitutes as wasting a life anyway, that's all experience. The soul needs to experience everything that there is to experience, and claiming that we don't have the drive to do the things that we want to do in this lifetime because we think we're going to reincarnate into a different lifetime where there are different lessons and different things to be learned doesn't add up to me. People will find the reasons not to perceive the world. People will find reasons not to engage with the world if they so desire. And I don't think the spiritual path, particularly a spiritual path with Morrigan, is for the lighthearted. And by lighthearted, I mean not fully committed. I don't mean jovial. We can be jovial, we can be silly, but we have a gravity as well, I feel. So back to crow energy a little bit. Spiritual masks. Wearing them, going through them, seeing with crow eyes. This is something I talk about a lot, and this is something that has happened to me in many meditations. So from a visual perspective, quite often if Bave wants me to see through her eyes or see through the eyes of crow or perceive something differently, I will be meditating and I will see a crow right up in my face, and I'm seeing into its eyes, it's seeing into mine, and then we switch and I will be seeing through crow eyes. It's an initiation process through a meditative prompt. It is a visual way of me understanding what's going on a spiritual level. It's a meditative visual aid for switching gears, switching perspective, and being shown things through the Morrigan. Perhaps it is fitting that when the Morrigan first came to me, there was an unmasking energy. There was an unmasking thing that went on of the goddess to whom I had spoken to all my life. I had spoken to the Morrigan my entire life, known as only as mother, but I didn't feel the need to engage with who she was until later. There was kind of this about time energy to it. But when she appeared the first time, as you may or may not have seen on this channel, she had a masculinity to her, a deep booming voice. She seemed masculine. She had a crow mask right down over her face with like the tip down here, and then like a feathered on her shoulders and very broad black cape. And I suspected the masculine was a messenger for the Morrigan. I didn't think it was the Morrigan herself. And when I realized it's one of those tests of perception. It is said that crows are masters of time. They're very much associated with a magician as well, but they are said to perceive past, present, and future simultaneously, and thus hint at the non-linear movement of time. This is just one example of the categorization process by which humans seek to define and control the universe, as we are limited by our own bodies and the walls we place within our own minds. Crow medicine, crow masks invite us to see beyond what we believe to be so, to express the intention that we are not the be-all and end-all of the universe, to seek, to question, to deconstruct, to explore, to find the adventure within these things and go beyond what we know to be true. And this is something which is becoming more and more important in a world which is backtracking, a world which is stopping seeking and just accepting what we're being spoon-fed. There is a need to shift perception and realize a whole host of things, being in connection to this natural world instead of seeing it as a resource which we can use, and stop seeing people as things to be used, seeing people as living, feeling beings with their own experiences. Crow medicine challenges us, and it's very unsettling sometimes, that rigidly held belief worldviews have no place. Asking us to sit with the notion of we are completely and utterly wrong. It's an unsettling thought, isn't it? We are taught within this community and we are taught within this society from word go that to be correct is the pinnacle of what we could want, particularly from an intellectual perspective, but also from all manner of things. It breeds elitism as well, unfortunately. But when you think about it, you grow up, you wanted the gold sticker, you wanted the green tick, you wanted the praise. You didn't want the cross or the ridicule or the no, you're wrong. And that translates to everything in life pretty much. To this day, we don't value mistake anymore. And crow medicine is, what if we are completely and utterly wrong? Can you sit with that? Can you learn from that? Can you feel it for what it is? Can you be expansive in the moment of being wrong? Can you appreciate the mistake? It's an important lesson, and it's an important repeated lesson, and it's okay. Then it challenges the perception of what we're saying is right and wrong anyway. Is there a wrong? Now, this is outside of the idea of ethics, which is another argument, and things being wrong in terms of ethics is another personal journey. Learning to value our interconnectedness to people, learning to see that we are not better than, we are not more elite than, we are not correct, we are not in a place of, spiritual sort of pedestal over anyone. It's just a learning experience. Something that I really enjoy with crow energy as well, which is something which speaks to my personal journey, particularly with the Morrigan, but in general in terms of spirituality, is that crows were frequently and still are reviled and treated with distrust, treated as the trickster, treated as associated with death. And even in the physical forms they present in this world, they're very intellectual, which makes you think, do they make human beings question how we are the highest intelligence in the world? Telling you what, I was telling this to people yesterday. I was joking, but it's true, in the What the Flux podcast, that octopi freak me out. They're so intelligent. I'm like, if the world's going to get taken over by anything, it's going to be octopi when they're going to evolve and come for us. I'm telling you. They're smart, so smart. And calculating. Welcome our new overlords. Anyway. And I drew from a quote from Penny Dreadful, and some people have huge issues with drawing from fiction quotes and then quote mythology at you. All the broken and shunned creatures, someone's got to care for them. Who shall it be if not us? Penny Dreadful. Furthermore, the carrion crow was present and feasting at the battlefields, an association which gave rise to death associations within their mythological context and gods and goddesses of war and death, such as the Morrigan. The Celts believed the crows were ferrying the souls of the dead to the other world by consumption of their flesh. That's an interesting embodying by taking on thread that exists within mythology, that the crows would take on the souls of the dead by consuming them, usually from their heads. The heads were said to contain the soul in Celtic mythology, and they consumed them and carried them to the underworld. And that's not 100 miles away from the idea of wearing a mask, that to embody it is to become it and learn the lessons from it. And so every time I wear a crow mask, and this doesn't have to be literal, but it can be, it's entirely up to the individual, I feel that it asks us to trust our instincts as well as to question everything. Along the spiritual journey, there comes a point when we have to learn to trust ourselves, or flounder at the polarized information available outside of ourselves, where elitist cries of "you can't be because I said so" pollute the conversation. We must be careful not to take that voice on as our own, because becoming elitist within our own discussions is not helpful to anyone. If we cling on to ideas so tightly that we cannot question them, we've kind of missed the point of crow medicine. There are many ways to experience life, to experience spirituality, to experience the same damn situation. You take witness statements from all around a particular moment in time, and you'll get all different stories, you get all different perceptions. People pick up on different things, but the way people process and think is different. Perception is everything. Crows are also associated with warfare and prophecy. Bave, in particular, in the courtship of Ferb and the Battle of Machelena, Bave appears to both warring factions, both foretelling the impending battle and inciting them to it. Let us consider the perception of each warrior faction at these battles, if we take it to be a literal telling of the story. Both sides in the mythos experienced the divine intervention of the goddess Bave, foretelling the battle, and considered themselves forewarned and therefore at a military advantage, unbeknownst to them that the other faction too had received the same information. Did this give rise to the perception by each side that they would be victorious? Did this perception give rise to the battle itself? Would the battle always have taken place without divine intervention, or did Bave create the war, hasten the war, or simply play her role within the cosmic ballet? From a limited human perception, we can argue any one of these points. If we are expansive, perhaps we can suggest all of these explanations are simultaneously true, and yet perhaps none of them are true at all. Crow medicine is the acknowledgement that we ultimately do not know and cannot know, perhaps, to have a defined or definite answer one way or the other. And so we settle on with what resonates with us at any given point in time as an answer, which is more telling about who we are than what the answer to the actual question is. This is what I feel that crow medicine is, and seeing through crow eyes is. So as we come to the tail end of this video now, we reached the point of where the lady asked me to create energies, and it was Morrigan with night energies, Morrigan with perceptions, looking up at the stars, divining the future. And we've already had prophecy and that kind of shimmer, and that kind of shimmer through the black crow energy as you see the shimmer through its feathers, that perception, that change. And just for 2 items, and these are the 2. So first and foremost, we have a realm candle to help connect to that energy. The realm candles are created with a sigil on the lid to help in the meditative process of gaining crow eyes in this particular circumstance. So you have a very interestingly lit sigil there, and I will send these out for you tomorrow, my dear, if you watch this video, because I know you've been waiting, but I apologize for that because of the migraine. And then the candle itself. The energy of the realm candle is created in order to take you to a place of crow energy. It is in a nighttime visual for me when I was creating this, because the night allows the instincts to come forth. When we are blinded by light from every angle, we are not listening to our instincts as strongly, as keenly as at nighttime. Some may perceive that to be more dangerous, and then they're on high alert, but are they? Or is it just that their vision is obscured and they're being forced to listen to their other senses and their instincts? Taking on that element of crow medicine to force you to trust your instincts and question everything at the same time. And then we have the spell oil, which I hope will show up on camera. Yes, it's black with a shimmer because I can. The black is all natural. There is no artificial dye or colorant, because I don't believe in that shiz. The glitter, by the way, because this has been a thing recently, all glitters are biodegradable, vegan-friendly glitter. I didn't realize I had to tell people this, but there you go. I suppose I should have done, really, but there you go. With a scent, with a beautiful scent. And this allows for scrying so well. It would work so well for scrying. I know people who scry in the bottles just like this. They're like, you know, this works really well, just scrying in your bottles. I'm like, well, if it works for you, sure, cool. But you can also, you know, put this in water and see how the 2 react, because oil and water, obviously, they will separate. You get shapes, you get images, you get a visualization process, you get that kind of inspiration. So that's it for this particular video. Thank you for bearing with me while I got this particular video done and out. I'm sorry about the delay. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or prompts for me to do any more to do with anything in this particular video, please leave them down below. If you like this video, by all means, click on a like. If you didn't, the dislike button's down there too, by all means. And many blessings. Stay flexy.